Okay, so as we all probably know by now, there have been a recent treasure hunter and MTX proposals, and for this video I'm going to be basically going through everything regarding MTX, what I think, my feedback, my suggestions, and pretty much talking about the future and well-being of the game. Let's get right into it. So first thing, skilling items that I particularly don't like. So mainly the type of skilling items or the skilling resources or benefits from Treasure Hunter that I personally don't like are things that directly interact with actual content or replace actual content or, detract from it in any shape or form. So proteins is probably the most egregious example because not only in a lot of cases does it replace the actual skilling activity and method, but sometimes it actually directly interacts with it. So protein traps, you're directly interacting with things that you would normally hunt, but you're doing it with an MTX item. Same with protein essence and probably various other items that I'm not thinking of. But yeah, proteins, really bad because it directly interacts with actual content and it also replaces actual skilling methods and activities. Combat dummies, pretty much the same thing, right? Fixate archaeology, I don't know why they implemented this. So fixate is an ability that you can unlock through the archaeology guild, and it's a daily as well. Like, I don't really know why. Like, they should have just made it so you this is going to be a bit of a side rant. They should have just made it so you get like, there's like, I don't know, like a 0.1% chance on each excavation to get a fixate charge, or every time you excavate a item, a artifact, I forgot what they were called, artifact, there's like a, I don't know, 5% chance that you get a charge, right? But it's currently a daily and you can bypass that daily by getting them from Treasure Hunter, although I've not seen them very often on Treasure Hunter, but that's the way you can actually bypass the 3 daily cap. Spring cleaner, I don't know what would happen. Like if I'm sorry, I just paused there for a moment because I hadn't thought about this before, but if spring cleaner was deleted from the game, what would actually happen? Because you'd end up with people just having a ton more alkables, right? And no one really alks, and no one can really alk at the speed of receiving alkables. So would that encourage more bots, or I don't know, will we get to a point where like alking is actually good money per hour? I mean, considering it's not AFK, I can actually see that happening one day if there was 0 bots and spring cleaner was removed. But yes, Silverhawk boots obviously just completely decimated and made archaeology agility irrelevant. Dwarven tools is something not a lot of people talk about, but yeah, it directly interacts with actual skilling content, doubling resources or increasing the XP. Slayer wildcards as well gives you the ability to bypass Slayer tasks. Wicked Hood teleports as well. I mean, a lot of these aren't that big. One thing I should probably preface before going into this and going into most of these discussions is that I mostly criticize ideas and gameplay. So like the Wicked Hood teleport tokens aren't that big of a deal, and having them is more beneficial than not because of like various things like close scrolls relying on a lot of these teleports, and being capped by daily is like bad. But it's just the idea that they're introduced through Treasure Hunter that I don't like, even though they're not very significant, right? Portables is an interesting one, right? Portables is acquired through Treasure Hunter, and I don't necessarily dislike some of these from a gameplay perspective. Like, I think Wicked Hood teleports are fine. I think portables are fine, but I just don't like them being introduced through Treasure Hunter. But yeah, so these are the most egregious skilling rewards from Treasure Hunter that directly interact or replace actual skilling, which I don't like. Now let's talk about the actual skilling XP. So I think we all agree that stars are better than lamps. So I personally would put these skilling items worse than lamps. Because lamps at least don't directly, like, yeah, they replace actual skilling activities, but they don't like directly interact or try to mimic skilling activities. But lamps are, I would say, like A tier bad, and these being S tier bad, and I would say BXP is pretty much near the bottom before cosmetic rewards. So because BXP, at least you have to like interact with the game to use up your XP and do actual skilling methods. Now, another thing that I kind of want to talk about here is promotions. Now, one of the things that I don't like about promotions is that, number one, it's incredibly FOMO, and that's how they, I think, draw a lot of people into actually using spins. And two, people have kind of like gamified like this like a rotation of promotions to you. Like there's like a promotion that they get a bunch of bonus XP for, and then they wait for the promotion which provides smoldering lamps, and then it's just kind of become like a cycle or rotation. I'll talk about the cosmetic promotions at a later time, but moving on. Cosmetics. So animation overrides, a lot of missed opportunity considering most games make a ton from their respective cosmetic shop, and Solomon's is kind of dead and forgotten. I think if I had to guess, and based on the data that we've gotten from the financial reports, I bet RuneScape is probably, like, in terms of like profit ratio, their cosmetic sales is probably the lowest percentile compared to any other game that sells like cosmetics or free to play or whatever, or any other MMO. So I feel like that's like a massive missed opportunity, and I wish they would like kind of look to like, why are they not selling? How are other games doing it? How do other games sell so much? How, like, etc., right? Now, I'm not saying that the cosmetics need to be as grand or as detailed as like a lot of other games like League of Legends, which probably has the best cosmetics of probably any game, even though, you know, there's been a lot of controversy around the pricing. I would say that they have the best. So I'm not saying that they need to be to that scale, but like, I think there is something definitely missing. And then when it comes to animation overrides, combat and skilling animations are core to how good a game feels, and these base animations are incredibly outdated. Now, I feel like this is not really something that a lot of people talk about, but as an example, I played Lost Ark for a couple of 100 hours, and one of the best things about that game is how powerful I felt and how impactful it felt to play the game, whether it's combat or skilling. Like, it felt like every single hit felt strong, felt powerful, you know? And especially as I grew, got more abilities, got stronger abilities, they felt even more powerful. Like, not only did I feel that I was getting more powerful through damage numbers, but also through animation, sound effects, etc. And I think that's one of the, and like, if people don't know, the animations that we currently have for most abilities have been exactly the same since EOC release. And a lot of the animations, I'm sure we all agree, look pretty much exactly the same. Sometimes it's hard to tell what people are using, right? Because like, I think Range is like great example where like 50% of the animations like start exactly the same and almost end exactly the same. If I was to want a rework, a graphical rework or animation rework of any kind, it would definitely not even close be combat and skilling animations, like way at the top, like metrics above anything else. And to come back to this, I think if we have a better base, then animation overrides are probably easier and more would be more popular to sell. I think they're already pretty popular, but I think reworking the base animations now before making a bunch of animation overrides would be more efficient. The replication of existing content. Ooh, God, I forgot about this before I started, but this one is a big one for me personally. This is my biggest dislike, like outside of integrity, the damage to integrity. I would say this is probably the worst thing that's ever come out of Treasure Hunter is the Aurora and Soul dies. Dies have always been this like prestigious, like, you know, expensive, high tier item, you know, that you'd see people wear and you'd be like, holy shit, this guy is like giga rich. Like, look at this balling guy, right? Like, it'd be like a cool factor, right? But, and it was also like exclusive to clue scrolls in a good way, where it would be like a very big drop, an exciting drop, right? Now, I'm not saying that it should stay exclusive to clue scrolls. Like, I would love to see one day where like a super like hard mode of a existing boss gets released and the only reward would be a die that you could show off. Let's say like Solak hard mode. There wouldn't be any drops. Like, you wouldn't get crossbows, you wouldn't get like extra drops, you wouldn't get new drops, you wouldn't get grim pages. The only thing you would get from defeating it would be a die, and you could show it off, and it'd be like a very, very difficult fight that you would have to spend days like learning in order to actually like do. But I won't get into that. Yeah, so Aurora and Soul dies, taking away from that. I hate this so much. Like, I cannot express how much I dislike this. I mean, generally, I just dislike the replication of existing content, right? So what that means is that they take something existing that people like, replicate it in some way, and then implement it into Treasure Hunter, right? I think Treasure Hunter, and I think this is a big thing, I think Treasure Hunter or microtransactions and actual content should always be completely separate. Meaning that whatever Treasure Hunter is releasing has to have no relation to skilling content. It can't interact with skilling content. It can't replicate skilling content. It can't, you know, it can't mimic PVM items. It can't replicate or rework PVM items in a cool, like, I would say like some of the reworked Nex armor cosmetics look better than normal Nex, right? I don't like that, you know? I think the best looking Nex armor should be the Nex armors, you know? Crazy take, right? But like, I don't mind like cosmetic armors looking better subjectively to actual armors. They just need to not like replace them, you know? Like, why wear Pernix armor when Platinum Pernix just is better? It's 1 bill, right? But I think Platinum Pernix is like 1 bill GP. Same with like Santa hats and Halloween masks. They know what they're doing. Like, they know what they're doing with these. And I think it's egregious and I hate it so much. This is like, I don't know if I'm the only one that hates this the most, but they know what they're doing. They know that people love and care about discontinued items. So they're replicating it, introducing it through Treasure Hunter, making it tradable, making it a form of gambling. Like, it's just super gross to me. More so than a lot of these things. Maybe not proteins because of the way that they interact with like directly with actual content. Let's move on to the mechanics. So MTX being included and involved with holiday events. Oh my god. I think people just like it. Like, I don't hear that many people complain about this, but I think people like it because you can quote unquote get it from like, you know, you can get like current, like the, what is it, Christmas wrapper from actual content, but then you spin and you get like 10 times what you can get in like days of playing through Treasure Hunter. I just don't like that little like insertion of Treasure Hunter and MTX in holiday events, right? I think people like it, like they get to win big and they get to win like a Santa hat. I personally don't like it, but I don't hear that many people complain about it. But that's because I think at the end of the day, people like progression, people like making money, and that's like a very free and easy way of making money. And it's like, I just see it as like Treasure Hunter, but I think maybe people don't see it directly as Treasure Hunter because you can get it from like outside of Treasure Hunter. But yeah, tradable valuable items. So going back to this, actually this ties directly with this. I'm gonna skip number 3 for a second. So tradable valuable items, I think, ties directly with addiction and gambling. So addiction outside of progression and XP. So some people can easily get addicted to the dopamine of getting large XP rewards, but which is also bad, because with that, at least like inserting money, whether it's real life or GP, and you know you're not going to get anything back, right? But when you make items valuable and tradable, and also replicate existing items, which increases the value and the desire for them, I think it can create a direct form of gambling. For example, let's say there's a big tradable reward within Treasure Hunter promotion, within this Treasure Hunter promotion, with the FOMO of it ending today, and you're out of keys, but you're a couple of spins off rolling on the big prize. As we all know, there's a lot of mechanics like the Witch's Potion and there's a ton of them. Witch's Potion is because I did the spins, like I did my daily spins like yesterday, and that's what was up. But you have to roll a couple of times before you can roll on the big reward, right? So let's say that's the case. Some players, right, especially if there's a big reward, right, up for grabs. Let's say there's a reward that's animation walk and it's 1 bill, right? You can spend 150 mil and win 1 bill, you know? Players are going to fall into the gambling behavior of buying bonds with the hope of profiting and winning big. And this happens, right? So like loot boxes are already bad enough. Loot boxes, referring to Treasure Hunter, right, are bad enough. But I think this is like a direct form of gambling where people are inserting money with the expectation and potential and hope for something back. Whereas like with XP rewards, I'm pretty sure most players know they're not going to profit. There's 0% chance of profiting. Even though this is a low percentage chance of winning, people are still going to roll, right? Yo, Editor Omid here. I'm going to pop in a few times during this video, but I somehow forgot to go back to the third point of the mechanics, which is gamified and more complex than skilling content. So it might sound ridiculous at first, but the more you think about it, the more you realize Treasure Hunter has actually become more complex, more in-depth, layered, and gamified than recent and new skilling content. Most recent skilling content is just AFK and nothing really to it. And with a lot of Treasure Hunter promos, you have to go through several tutorial dialogue, right? And most of the time, I personally don't even know what the hell's going on, and I'm just clicking, right? But yeah, just wanted to make that point. So we're on to feedback. Wow, we're kind of blitzing through this. I don't know if I'm missing anything, but yeah, feedback. Introduce some skilling items, for example, portables through various artisan skills, such as invention, since they're a big part of the game and have synergies with core skilling items like Brooch of the Gods, brooch, whatever, man. But yeah, if they are to eliminate a lot of these rewards and content from the game, they should replace some of them, in my opinion, not proteins, right, but some of them through, like, for example, I don't know, it's also like there was a discussion like earlier about like whether it's too late, and I do think, is it too late to restore the integrity of this game? The answer to that would be yes, right? I think the damage is done, but big but, right? It's not too late to make this change for the betterment of the game, for the happiness of players, for the enjoyment of the game, right? I think like the proposal is too late to restore any kind of integrity that has damaged the game, but in the long term, it will heal. And in the long term, like let's say like 10 years from now, right? If a lot of these changes go through, like I think like the integrity of the game will be healed somewhat, right? Will it be restored? No, like the integrity will never be fully restored, but it can be healed, and it can be for the betterment of the players and the enjoyment of the players and the happiness of players, right? So I just want to address that, because when I look at Silverhawks, I'm just like, the amount of XP that's been gained through these boots is outrageous, right? And can that ever be fully like restored? No, because the XP, you can't, like, unless you retract the XP people have gotten from Silverhawk boots, so obviously that wouldn't be popular, right? Hey, it's your favorite Editor Omid. So I wanted to make an analogy relevant to this topic, which is that I kind of see this as a cut where it can be healed and it will form a scar, but it will never ever like fully heal and disappear. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Some of these items I'm just like, spring cleaner is probably like the one that's like sticking to my, like some of these things I think are fine to delete, like proteins you delete and give, I don't know, something back in return. Like you, like proteins become unusable, but you can convert them to something else. I don't know. Probably bonus XP in that, in their respective items actually, right? That would be the most simple thing. But like when I think of spring cleaner, I don't know what would happen if this thing was deleted, you know? But spring cleaner, I don't know how you obtain spring cleaner actually. It's the item itself, but you can like craft springs. You can craft silverhawk feathers through invention, right? So I don't know. One thing that I really, really want, this is probably the biggest point of feedback, and I really wish they would go through with this, or they wish they would put some resources in making this work or making something like this. So engagement data and direct communications with the community are important factors in making game-changing decisions. I know a lot of people don't like engagement rates, and I don't either, because sometimes I feel like companies make decisions purely on engagement data, which is grossly incorrect, right? The best example I always use, and the example that is most suited for RuneScape, is back in the day when Treasure Hunter Square of Fortune was first released. They came out, like I think a couple of months after its release, they came out saying 99% of people use spins daily. That means people like it. And there was outrage, rightfully so, outrage, right? That's like the worst example of just engagement rates being used without anything else, without the knowledge of the game, without connected to the community, understanding the game, without any other kind of data like communications or player happiness or player satisfaction. So engagement rates and data are important, but you can't use them on their own. So engagement data with direct communications with the community are important factors in making game-changing decisions, but most people don't interact with the many JMod channels. Now, I do think that one of the great things about RuneScape is how much interaction there is between developers and JMods and the community. I think it can be a good thing and a bad thing, but I definitely do appreciate it, right? In some cases, you'll get people, like, I think in more niche and like high level stuff, it's bad because, let's say, like, how many people complain about range being overpowered? Those are people, like, I mean, this is going to be a bit of a tangent rant, right? But I'm fucking tired of people saying range is the strongest style, range is overpowered. Like, yeah, range at peak levels with all the gear, which is like, range is very expensive to buy, like BIS range is very expensive, which I think comes into balancing, right? Like, I think something being more expensive, being more powerful is okay, right? But also on top of that, it's very, very, very difficult to optimize and deal that amount of damage. I think people just watch videos and watch other content creators and streamers and see like, wow, what the hell, this guy just did 150k damage with their SGB. That's broken, without any kind of thought or experience. But like, I think if people actually used range, they would realize that it's not broken. But a lot of people, this happened with continuous 4-tick auto attack. Like, whether continuous 4-tick auto attack was a good thing, I don't know if many people know about this, but basically you could 4-tick every ability rather than every second ability, right? People had a lot to say about continuous 4-tick auto attack, and it was very obvious that a lot of those people had never done it before. So it's a little bit infuriating to see people, talk about things that they literally have no knowledge or experience in. I mean, I think everyone's opinion does matter, but like, I think if you're going to comment on something, then I think you should at least have experienced it. Hey, Editor Omid back again. As I sometimes go on these long tangents, I sometimes forget to loop the tangent back to the main point. So what I was trying to say is that at least with Treasure Hunter, everyone has experience in it, everyone knows about it, everyone has like a base knowledge of how Treasure Hunter works. So anyways, I'm gonna let the video run, you know, not just like watching someone, like for example, like me watching like Faker play a champion versus me playing the champion are gonna be completely different, right? And it might be broken in a top player's hand, but it might be absolutely garbage in like, you know, gold, silver, plat, whatever. So I think that kind of balancing does matter. And that's also a PvP game. We're talking about a PvE game, so it doesn't directly impact other players other than like econ. I'm kind of going way too deep into this. My point is, Dude, I just realized how far I went. My point is that the interaction between JMods and players are mostly good, and I appreciate it, but sometimes it can be detrimental in my opinion. But I think it's important to measure everyone's contentment. So that was the conclusion to that. Engagement data, I'll just reread it because I went on such a big tangent. Engagement data and direct communications with the community are important factors in making game-changing decisions, but most people don't interact with the many JMod channels, and I think it's important to measure everyone's contentment, right? So I don't know what percentage of players actually interact with like Discords and Twitter, whatever, right? Whatever social media, but I imagine it's like a very small percentage, right? And I think it's important to gauge people's happiness in the most broad sense, as well as these two things. Like I think I don't think any of these components individually work. Like directly communicating without engagement or the contentment of the majority of players, it'd be very skewed, right? It'd be kind of shooting in the dark, I feel like. So I think having in-game polling and being like, and then also you can pinpoint people's enjoyment of specific things within a broad update. So I believe the first iteration, I actually think I might have it here. Where is it? Disabling Treasure Hunter. Oh no, it was the second thing, right? Where they're disabling like proteins, dummies, and pretty much every like item reward exclusive to Treasure Hunter, right? Now, what if someone really hated proteins but didn't mind or enjoyed dummies, right? They can't really convey that through engagement or not as easily through communications, right? So I think if there was like a little mini poll where you could rate your enjoyment of specific things from 1 to 10. So how much did you like the disabling of proteins? It'd be like 10, and dummies maybe like a 4, and portables maybe like 1. Like you really hated the disabling of portables. JX could like pinpoint what people like, whereas like if they're disabling everything and they go by engagement rates, well, that engagement rate is encompassing all three of those things, right? Coupled together. So I think like the decoupling of certain aspects of the game is good. Like for example, oh my god, I'm going to go into a tangent again. You ain't stopping me. One of the infamous surveys back in the day would couple. So they basically were asking like what kind of bosses people would want, right? And they would like, and they listed, would you like a super endgame sick boss with crazy rewards and an elite dungeon? It's like, what? I mean, I don't want an elite dungeon, but I do want that super crazy boss. I just want it to be separated. And it would be like, the next line would be like a mid-level boss with an elite dungeon. And it'd be like a KBD boss rework hard mode with an elite dungeon. It's like, I like some of those ideas, but I just don't want the elite dungeon. But you can't specify that because they're coupled together. So, in-game poll, please. And then this could also be replicated for like in-game content, right? Let's say Zami gets released, right? People could vote on how much they enjoyed the elite dungeon. People could rate how much they enjoyed the aesthetics, the music, the boss fight, the rewards, everything, right? It could just be listed and people just vote. It wouldn't be a poll deciding content. It would be a poll gauging how much people enjoy specific parts of the content and how much they value, like the story as well. Like everything could be rated, right? And I think that would give developers a better direction of what people like and what people don't. That for me is the biggest one. that is easily like one thing I've wanted for like years. I've asked directly of JMods of this, and I don't think it will happen unless people voice their opinions. But yeah, all right. So the other concern I actually had here, I know this is mostly positive, but it is also important to voice concerns and give feedback. Like I think nowadays a lot of time people are afraid of voicing criticism and negativity, especially in the rise of something very positive. But at the end of the day, who the fuck cares? I'm gonna say what I think. I'm gonna be honest, right? And ultimately, I think developers like hearing this, you know? So if people are upset, I don't care. First experiment, disabling Treasure Hunter. We will turn off Treasure Hunter instead of offering bundles. Instead offering bundles of stars and knowledge bombs for direct purchase. So basically what this means is that just flat XP lamps and stuff will be disabled, but bonus XP will still be available, and it will be available through a direct purchase rather than rolling on loot boxes and whatnot, right? But then this is what got me kind of worried, is that it's capped at 1 bundle per day. I don't like that the bundle is capped at 1 per day, because it makes me think it's going to be super strong and efficient, potentially making it waste or irresistible to not purchase it, especially and it especially is worse that it becomes a daily. I'd much prefer, I was going to explain it, but then I realized the next line is just explaining it. So, yep. I'd much prefer for the BXP purchase to be unlimited, but not as strong, so it doesn't almost become a mandatory daily to spend money in bonds on a MTX purchase. That also would feel like a FOMO. So there'd probably be cases if this happened, is where people would just log in, do their dailies, including buying a bundle and logging out, right? It become like a routine similar to spinning their daily spins, right? So basically, I'd rather it just be like an unlimited purchase. Like, buy as much as you want, but it's not like a daily cap. Like, another thing that I don't like, I don't know why, I feel like sometimes they add dailies to things that I just don't understand. Like, for example, BXP, right? You know when you convert like an hour of your BXP to currency, why is that a daily? Why can't I just convert all my BXP to currency? Like, why do I have to? Whatever, man. Side points. You might have seen the big letters here, but that's the biggest point here with this. Side points. This is the only time any game has proposed rolling back their pay to win in MTX. Now that is something, alright. Like, most games, when they come into this situation, they will milk their players. They will like knowingly milk their players, and they will just continually double down until they can no longer sufficiently run their game and develop their game. I've seen that happen with way too many games, and for them to actually roll back on their pay to win in MTX is kind of crazy. Like, sometimes like games will go from like pay to play to free to play and then add a bunch of MTX, or the other way. I don't know if I've seen it the other way around, like a free to play game going pay to play. I don't know. Anyways, I've never seen this, which kind of makes me think that there's a lot of goodwill. They are probably going to measure the profitability of MTX against how much the player base dislikes them and how significantly it affects the integrity of the game. So there's going to be 3 bars probably, gesturing with my hand, but you can't see it, but just close your eyes and imagine you can see it. So it's going to be like 3 bars. 1 bar is going to be how much money this piece of content makes percentage-wise of the whole MTX profit pool, right? And there'd be another bar of how much the player base dislikes the piece, that element. And be another bar to show like how much XP comes out of it, like, again, percentage of all MTX rewards. I don't know if that'd be an easy way of measuring, but that'd show the integrity, right? So let's say if something's like low profit margin, like let's say something's like 10% profit. I'm just gonna write it here. So 10% profit, but 90% of players hate it, right? as like 50% integrity, right? So maybe the reason why 90% of people really hate it, or people have like it'd be like a scale of like 1 to 10, right? So the average would be 9 out of 10 dislike for this content, right? So maybe the reason why it's not matching the integrity is because maybe the gameplay mechanics around this piece of content is like hated by players. So probably like proteins, right? I don't know how much what the percentage XP of proteins makes up for all MTX, but kind of imagine it being like as high as like other things. The highest would probably be like, would it be bonus XP? I don't actually know. Like bonus XP would be like a very interesting one, right? Because it'd probably be like integrity would be like very high, but the player hatred would be very low, and the profits would probably be medium, right? So they'd be probably looking at these three things. Like if it's like this, right? 10% profit, but players hate it 9 out of 10, and it impacts integrity by 50%. They're probably gonna drop it, right? Because I think they're basically balancing like player happiness with how much money they make, right? And if they increase player happiness at the sacrifice of some money, then more players might come in, which might fill that profit margin, right? I think that's generally how they're looking at it, especially at the top of the post of that thread, right? Where they cited what percentage of players would come back to the game if Treasure Hunter was removed. The profit incentive and player happiness is actually aligning, which is something that is incredibly rare in a game with high monetizations. And I think one of the reasons this probably happened is right here, point number 3. So if Hero Pass controversy never happened, it might have been like the straw that broke the camel's back, but I think Hero Pass was so egregious that actually like rippled into this effect. So if Hero Pass controversy never happened, all these positive proposals would have never been considered, in my opinion. Hero Pass was kind of like a necessary evil. Obviously, I don't like Hero Pass, right? I was one of the earliest people that was outspoken about it because of the interactions that I had with PVM and the benefits I had for PVM, regardless of how significant they were, right? I just didn't like it, and I know that like, yeah, these PVM buffs are small, but like we know how monetizations work, and we know how it's like a snowball and it gets worse and worse and worse over the years. So I just didn't like the precedent and the idea of it. But one thing I'm actually proud of the RuneScape community, right? Very proud of. Probably the most proud I've been of the RuneScape community is that not only did they let their voices be heard, they stood up for themselves rather than, because I think for the longest time with not only content, but also microtransactions, RuneScape players have just become used to like eating shit, right? Like JX would just serve players plate after plate, just shit, and RuneScape players would just gobble that shit up, and they'd ask for seconds, right? But no longer. Like there's always been people that have like stood up against JX and some of the like content and updates, and especially MTX. But now they're like, I feel like we're kind of unified. And not only are we unified, we've done something that no other game has seen in a significant way, which is we spoke, well, not we because I continue playing the game, but they spoke with their wallets by leaving the game or moving to old school. And I think this is the reason why this has all happened, right? And I'm proud of the RuneScape community for making that decision. Because I think in most games, I mean, definitely in most, I've never seen this happen, right? Where like companies release something and players have actually spoken with their wallets and, you know, left the game immediately, and forcing the company to make a change and to, you know, roll back the things that they've done. So yeah, big up. No one says that anymore. Big up. Okay. Anyways, moving on. Proof that RuneScape has the potential to grow and flourish. A lot of people don't see like the potential of RuneScape the way I do. Like I think RuneScape 3 has the potential to become really big. It has the potential to be a significant MMO in the MMO space. I can see eventually, in some case, old school players playing both RS3 and old school. Like a lot of RS3 players play old school. I think a lot of players think its potential is limited and it's like quote unquote dead or it's dying. But I think this is the best case study. This shit needs to be like documented. I feel like I'm not knowledgeable enough on the whole incident to be able to like talk about it. But I think it's so damn interesting, right? So Final Fantasy, you might say, oh, but that's a big franchise. So is RuneScape. I think a lot of people know RuneScape, right? Maybe not as widely as Final Fantasy 14, Final Fantasy, but like for example, old school RuneScape is probably more like, I don't actually know. Maybe not. Like among like normal people, if you took like the whole population of the world and you asked them if they knew what Final Fantasy 14 was, 14 specifically, and old school RuneScape, I don't know. But what I'm saying is that I think RuneScape is known, right? So Final Fantasy 14 is the best, perfect case study, and I'll explain why. So what happened with Final Fantasy 14 is it was released. I played it personally. I thought it was one of the worst games I've ever played. It was easily the worst MMO I've played. I've played a ton of just kind of garbage Korean MMOs. And I would say that Final Fantasy 14 on release was it was like really bad. But they got their shit together over 3 years or 4 years of consistent good updates, complete reworks of systems, complete rework of the game. They regained the player base's trust by making consistent good updates that made existing players happy and excited for the future of the game. Now, so like Final Fantasy 14 went from a gigaflop, hated, bad game to one of the biggest games. So seeing this happen is like proof to me. Even like old school to a degree, right? Like old school started like dwindling after it was first released because there was like contention between players and developers in wanting to develop the game or to retain its like OG 2000 self identity, right? And I think if they stuck with the 2007 identity, I think it would have died. But I think developers made the right choice by having knowledge of the game and understanding the game and developing it in a way where it made players happy. So I think old school is like a decent example of this as well. Like Path of Exile as well. Like Path of Exile went from a no name, a nothing. No one played it, no one knew about it, no one knew its name, right? To arguably like the biggest ARPG in the gaming industry, right? And like I think also now like Path of Exile is very popular. It's also like the reputation of these games, right? Like old school, Final Fantasy 14, Path of Exile. These 3 games are great case studies on success of a game, right? And I think one of the biggest factors to prove its success is you ask someone about the game, they're going to say it's amazing, right? It's got an amazing reputation for a lot of these. Now, are there controversies? Are there like criticism? Sure. But as a whole, overall, I think those 3 games are like massively loved. I mean, look at Clue Scrolls is another great example within RS3, right? Look how it went from being a small part of the game, right? Just a little D&D that sometimes some people would participate in with zero community. There was no community, no like FC or anything like that was for like Clue Scrolls, right? And now it's arguably one of the biggest categories within the game with a massive community. And the reason for that is because it receives high quality updates and changes, which ultimately makes the gameplay am I really going to go a video without saying the fun, right? I think the development around Clue Scrolls is so in touch, so well done, that it's further developed, further like progressed Clue Scrolls to being even more fun. And over a period of time, it's grown a massive community. Now, my ideal state for microtransactions. So, I personally, I mean, in a perfect ideal world, I would no MTX, right? But obviously, like I think a lot of people a lot of time excuse JX and MTX, but like sometimes I feel like it's good to cite other games or cite the popularity or the detriment of MTX. Like I hate the response and the argument, the dismissive response of like, oh, JX are a business, they need to make money. Yeah, obviously every business needs to make money, but that doesn't mean that it needs to be at the detriment or the cause of unhappiness of the employees or the employer or the customers. Anyways, unlimited bonus XP purchase as a complete replacement for Treasure Hunter. All cosmetics and animations are moved on, to Solomon's. I'm not gonna repeat the specific ideals and suggestions I had for this, as I've already talked about them. So complete detachment of MTX from content, no resources that interact or detract from skilling, no cosmetics that derive from content. And then we come to the last big point. Now, rightfully so, I imagine a lot of you guys see this and you're like, yeah, I don't believe it. Why is that? The T word, trust, right? I do not blame. I think you're sane if you don't trust JX. I think that is completely understandable. I don't blame you for not trusting JX, and I don't blame anyone for not believing that anything fruitful will come from this, right? So something that has been broken. So trust is something that has been broken constantly over the years, and it's something that only can be rebuilt over years of consistent, the key words here, consistent good updates. And no, this is the other big one, no contradictions to their promises. Meaning, hey, we're going to tackle MTX and how egregious it is and how it negatively impacts the game, the enjoyment of the game, the happiness of players, and the integrity of the game. But now we're going to release a massive promo that is the most broken it's ever been. That would be a contradiction to their promises. For this whole period, they need to completely chill out on MTX. No new promotions, no in-your-face pop-ups, just nothing pretty much. That like, it might be a big hit to their profits, but that is the only way you're going to regain their trust. The best way, in my opinion, I've said this hundreds of times, and I think the examples of, again, Final Fantasy XIV, Old School, and Path are proof of this. The best way to grow a game is by making the existing player base happy and getting them excited for the future. Existing player base. The reason why now a lot of people have talked about this recent post and this recent message of taking a step back on MTX is because the existing player base has resonated that excitement and happiness of this proposal. As my thoughts on the Treasure Hunter and the proposal. Anyways, bye.